Welcome to Level Up Real Estate Investing Podcast with Robert Heyder. This is a no-fluff podcast where we dig deep into the journey of scaling your real estate investing and wholesaling business and discuss how to break into commercial real estate investing. Robert Heyder here with Level Up Real Estate Investing Podcast. For those who don't know me, I'll go through my journey a little bit here. I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, lower middle class family. First member of my family to traditionally go to college. Out of college, I got into commercial real estate finance. It worked out really well. I was one of the youngest vice presidents of commercial real estate lending in St. Louis at the age of 25. During my time, I underwrote over $1 billion in commercial real estate deals. And then transitioned into full-time entrepreneurial real estate investing in 2013. When I got into real estate investing personally, I focused more on real estate rehabs, did some rentals and wholesales as I was trying to learn the wholesaling game. I quickly realized that the wholesaling side of the business was more scalable, focused on that heavy, and over the 6 years had exponential growth. In 2019, we will have purchased over 200 houses for wholesale, as well as running a real estate brokerage that'll do 60 million plus in transactions. We started and have since sold a residential property management company. We made a big transition into commercial real estate deals. We own and manage over 110,000 square feet of commercial space, as well as 60 plus residential doors. And the reason I go through all this for you guys is to get into the mission of this podcast, the real reason that I'm here. This is for next level thinkers. We're gonna be talking about the newest ideas, the most innovative stuff. We're gonna be talking about the 1% and 2% difference, the it factor, the edge, the stuff that really makes some investors great while other investors fail. We're gonna be digging deep into work-life balance, mindset. We're gonna be having interviews with some of the top folks in the industry, both in the residential and commercial real estate investing sectors. As well as high-level finance guys, maybe even tech guys that have scaled big businesses. If you want to be the best investor that you can be, and you want to get opened up to folks that are doing huge things, how they think, how they make decisions, how they process data, you're in the right spot. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Level Up Real Estate Investing Podcast. Very excited today to have Trang here out of Phoenix, Arizona. Just an absolute stud in the industry. Gotten to know him a little bit over the last year or so, and just respect the hell out of the guy. So, he's got an amazing story. 2007, he got into real estate, mostly on the agent side, real estate agent side. In 2013, started a brokerage, really kind of built it out. 2014, built a mortgage company from there. 2017, kind of got into the title business and just kept layering onto it. Had been doing wholesaling passively for a long time. And in 2018, got into like really kind of growing the wholesale business, really making it a real business and part of his big picture. And then started his Real Estate Disruptors podcast in 2018 as well. And a lot of other things, his coaching and mastermind arm, and so many other things. So very, very excited to have you. What's going on, Steve?
Oh, not a whole lot. I really appreciate you having me. I've been looking forward to this for quite some time. I know we talked about it a few months ago, so I'm really excited that you got it launched, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad to have you here. And yeah, obviously it was something that I've been thinking about for a long time, kind of getting the podcast jumped off. And it's been just burning at me. And then when we met at the Supergroup Mastermind and kind of started kind of digging through it, it really kind of helped push me forward. So I appreciate, the insight and the advice and the help kind of getting it launched and getting it going.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, cool. So did I properly kind of get into all the stuff, your timeline? Did I hit on all the all the kind of crazy stuff you got going on?
I think you hit all the bullet points. The mortgage, it's not a mortgage company, it's a mortgage partnership, but, it still does really well and good for all of us.
Terrific. Well, hell, one of the coolest things about your operation, and one of the things that we've been really kind of working on growing is kind of building a business based on kind of a similar model, kind of a good to great model, where you kind of have your your flywheel, your incubator, your thing that actually produces income and brings in kind of all your resources, and then layering on and bolting on separate businesses that add value, and then ultimately kind of setting up a very strong partner, a very strong operator, so that those can kind of run independently and grow and really thrive off of that flywheel.
For sure.
So tell me a little bit about that.
I would say, I would say a big part of it is, it was at some point, Good to Great was one of the many books I've read. And I think there's a point where at some point, all of us as entrepreneurs, we get into this business to think about all this free time we're going to have and all this money we're going to make, and we're traveling, drinking Mai Tais on the beach. That's what they sell you, right? When you get entrepreneurship.
Oh yeah.
And you have this vision when you first get into it. And then what happens? You see these memes. You quit a 40-hour-a-week job to work 80 hours a week to chase a dream.
Yeah.
And what people forget sometimes is why we got into it in the first place. And so Darren Hardy is someone that I follow passionately. I watch his Darren Daily every single morning. I paid him a lot of money to go to his events. He's done very well through me. And so one of the things that he said to me in one of his courses was, most business owners build a business and fit their life, where it fits, right? And what our job is to build a life and fit our business around it where it can fit.
Yep.
And that was a major clicking moment. It's obvious. It's really simple, but there's profound wisdom in that statement.
Oh, it's huge. There's a group, I don't know where exactly it was founded, but it has a very strong St. Louis background or backing. It's called Life and Air. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it kind of goes off that similar model where it's like, instead of being this millionaire business owner, blah, 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 instead of going that route, you create the life you want, and then you can form your business around it. So you're not just a millionaire, you're actually a lifeonaire. You can kind of live the lifestyle you want and have a very successful business, but you have to kind of build the life plan and the business plan and merge them together, with the life plan having the kind of stronger field of the two. So
the priority.
It takes priority over the two. And
the reason why you
can do it. Yeah. Which is funny. I remember when I first got started, like, I had so many folks be like, oh, well, you probably have a lot of time to do some stuff now that you work for yourself. And it's like, man, it couldn't be farther from the truth. I had so much more time.
No, you work 80 hours a week.
Yeah. And honestly, I still do. I still work a lot. I have the freedom to choose when I work, for the most part, obviously. But I still work a lot, and I choose to. And I think about it. I'm very, I guess, intentional about how I'm doing it, given that I want to build something bigger and build something greater. I could choose to work a lot less and still do very well, but the intention of continually bolting things on and then finding the right operators to go out and run those.
It's Maslow's hierarchy, right? We're chasing significance now. We're chasing different things.
Absolutely.
Significance.
And I don't know if at this point, I'd like to have the freedom and the option to work less at certain times, but I'm still at a mode where I'm still grinding at it pretty hard. Are you still putting in a solid amount of time, or what kind of hours are you putting in a week now?
So from 2007 until about 2013, I was working probably 60, 70 hours a week.
Okay.
2013 to 2018, I was probably working 35, 40 hours a week.
So
I'm
13
back
through
to
18.
50 hours now.
Okay, so you slowed down between 13 and 18 to 35, 40 hours a week, and then now you're back.
Yeah, because I had massive leverage, right? Because I was just a realtor and a broker, right? I didn't start bolting all these things on. But once I did the wholesaling, and I mean, that's a business that takes quite a bit of attention.
Mm-hmm.
And then coaching, you're at service to somebody. You made a commitment to somebody. You made a promise to help somebody. So
absolutely.
I'm more involved now.
Well, that's great to hear, because I think there's a substantially more coaches out there that don't look at it that same way, where they really feel committed to making folks better. And if they say, hey, I'm signing up, I'm making this commitment, I'm actually going to do it. I I think
gotta be a two-way street.
yeah, more folks are just chasing the dollar and then actually trying to add the value. So it's cool to hear. And I wouldn't have expected anything less, but it's just, it's always good to hear someone actually say it, you know?
Yeah.
Well, cool. So, so we kind of went over your background a little bit, which is really, really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
I love kind of following what you got going on and kind of hearing about it, because there's just so many layers to it. You know, we've are similar in that approach, where we've got our brokerage, our wholesale business. We've got a commercial real estate business that we're in, and then a hard money company and a senior living rollout and a few other things. So we've kind of bolted on a lot of things around a central incubator, some of which we're still looking to kind of get that key operator or partner to run. Specifically our brokerage company. We're actually searching for that person right now to help kind of grow that. You know, we did just under about 60 million this year in volume, which is, I think, pretty damn good for us. It was really our first full year in it, but I think we could do substantially more and have a lot of success with a full-time, you know, kind of operator in there, just really focusing on growth and integrating a lot of the systems that we have already put in place on our wholesale side. So that's the one big next step. But like I said, I just really, really like that model, and I like how much success you've had with it over the years, and you've been in it longer than we have.
Yeah, well, you know, I think one of the cool things is I've gone through lots of personal development, gone through lots of courses and so on. And there was something that stuck out to me in one of these guys, you know, one of these Frank Kern, Ryan Dice kind of guys, is that McDonald's doesn't make very much when you buy that Big Mac. They really don't.
Sure.
Right? Like, they might make a nickel, but they're making 100% of the fries and the Coke. And so, you know, or you go to Best Buy, they don't make very much money in the refrigerators, which was mind blowing to me. Like, all their money is from the warranties.
Right.
And so for me, right, like, when we already spent the money to get the real estate transaction, why not make money on the loan and the title piece as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. Get that vertical integration. Just be in touch with it. You've already got that client. They already trust you. You're already there. Just bolt on and tap on these other, and it should be easier for them. If you're operating these businesses right, it should be a much easier and cleaner process for them, having it all in-house, you know, all under kind of one
100%
generalized roof. So it should be a win-win, assuming it's ran properly, right? Which I think a lot of folks. And it is
run properly, because I'm not the one running it.
Right. Because if you were trying to touch all pieces, there's just not enough time in the day to make that work. But also at the same point, there's a lot of folks that have a little bit of success, and typically the people that are talking the loudest, but they'll have a little bit of success in one angle of their business. And then next thing you know, they're also doing this and this and this and this, none of which are being done right. But you know, they're trying to talk about how much success they're having and all these different things. But in reality, most folks that have been there know that the likelihood that they could have built that out, had the systems, had the process, have the right people in place to be able to operate it, are slim to none, you know, so that's why I say the big caveat is there, making sure that it's actually done right. Then it should be a win-win. It should be a no-brainer for the client. It should be a no-brainer for the person that you've already built that relationship with. You've already spent the money to bring them in. Why not make it work across the board? Because it's more, you know, it's substantially more profitable and more strategic for you, but at the same point, it's a benefit for them if it's ran right.
Well, and the big thing is, you know, like, I want to say the idea to add these all the components to it actually came from a loan officer, you know, and she was the one that recruited me to do the partnership. I didn't recruit her. It wasn't like, hey, I want to go do this. She recruited me. She's like, you should be doing this, and you're an idiot leaving all this money on the table. I was like, okay, show me. Tell me show me what you're talking about. And, you know, it made a lot of sense. But, you know, she's a world-class loan officer. When I started the title company, I wasn't going to do it without a really good escrow officer. But what did I do? I recruited a world-class escrow officer. She was the #1 escrow officer at her company, which was a good-sized company in the Phoenix market. So I recruited her to run the escrow component. And so for me, like, I'm all about finding world-class people and partnering with them versus me trying to start something from scratch and build it up piece by piece.
And that's huge, right? So I hope everyone got that, because that's a really, really big piece. So on the mortgage company, that person brought it to you and said, hey, you should do this. And then you guys came together. And I assume that mortgage officer, do they have ownership in the mortgage? Well, it's a partnership, you said. So I assume they do, right?
Partnership. Yeah. So
Okay.
she's got a lion's share of it, but I'm glad with the crumbs. I am happy with the crumbs.
Yeah. We talked about that in detail, kind of on some of the financial figures, and it sounds like it's a fantastic partnership for you. Now, on the title company, so it sounds like on the title side, it was a little bit different, right? Because you were like, hey, I think we should do this. And then you went out and recruited the best escrow officer that you could to come and run that title company. So versus them coming to you, like the mortgage side came about.
Right.
So is that person a partner in the business, or are they more like an operator? Okay.
She is a partner. Yep. Yeah.
That's
so she's got a smaller part because in this case, I brought most of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But we're partners and we split.
Oh, that's terrific. So how many offices do you guys have on the title side? Just on
the title side, we just have one office.
Okay.
Just the one.
And does that office primarily kind of transact amongst your brokerage and your wholesale side, and all of that kind of come together to feed it? Or okay.
Yep. Yeah, it's our traditional arm. And I wish, we captured 100% of our brokerage, because if we did, it'd be unbelievable. We don't.
Sure.
We capture a fraction of it, but it's still really good, And then we're trying to capture 80% of the wholesale market. I would estimate we're probably somewhere in the single digits, high single digits, but the goal is to capture 80% of the wholesale market.
High single digits on what? Capturing the share of your wholesale business?
All the wholesale transactions in the Phoenix market.
Oh, okay, I understand. So not your wholesale transactions. You're talking about all of Phoenix wholesale transactions.
All of Phoenix.
Yeah, that's a hell of a goal. I love that.
Yeah. Why not?
Are you? Knowing enough about you and knowing that you're saying that is your goal, I have a very high confidence that you have an action plan to kind of roll that out. So that being said, what's
we hired a person end of last year who we call her director of happiness, and her job is just to make the wholesale agents happy. Like, whatever's going on in the transaction, are you happy? What's going on? How could it be better? And she's asking that question on their weekly updates.
So the wholesale agents, so the real estate agents that are working on wholesale deals, or wholesalers, or explain that a little bit more detail.
Yeah. So if you open a file at my title company, there's one person whose job is to assist the escrow officer. And she's the one that's communicating with the wholesaler throughout the transaction. And her responsibility when she's giving updates is to ask them if they're happy. And if they're not happy, what's going on?
Got it. Where'd the issue lie? Right.
Yep. So she's more proactive. And the reason why, title insurance on the traditional real estate side, a lot of them, they have to buy a business,
Right.
But on the wholesale side, there's not that much competition. So we could just keep people happy. We should win it.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot
they don't expect people to come and buy their business. They just don't expect it on the wholesale side.
Absolutely. No doubt about that. But the value of a good escrow officer and the value of having a good title company to get the things done and handle the issues, because inherently there are just more issues on the wholesale side, right? The more motivation from the seller.
I would say 2 to 5 times more work versus a traditional
Absolutely.
escrow.
And in most cases, the person you're talking to is the buyer and the seller. So you're dealing with the decision maker. You're not having to deal with an agent who's trying to make their client happy. So it's a little bit different relationship, right? And kind of how it's progressed. And also the financial benefit or the potential of a loss if that deal doesn't work because of title issues is typically much greater for the wholesaler too. At least it is
way more significant for the wholesaler.
Right. So they might have, 15, 20, 50, 100 grand on the line on that deal, while on a typical commission split, it's not quite the same. And, and most of the time there's not some big problem they're trying to push past. Well, as you know, I mean, there's just so many so many issues that come up on title on the wholesale side.
There are.
And time, typically, I'll tell you, the worst title issues that we come across are the ones that come up right before closing. You know, if with time, we can solve a majority of problems. The problem is when you have a very short timeline and then last minute issues sneak in. I mean, almost nothing infuriates me more than having a last minute issue pop up that makes everyone have to have a fire drill and causes all these issues when it should have been caught so much sooner.
100%.
So if
that's title world.
well, yeah, but if I had a title, if our title company had someone ask us, hey, were you happy with this transaction? You know, most of the time I'm probably saying yes, but those are going to be the vast majority of the ones like, no, I'm not. This was a huge damn issue. And it pulled everyone off what they're supposed to be doing otherwise. We can't be strategic. We can't look at long-term goals. We can't, roll out other things. Yeah, absolutely. It's it's the quadrant conversation, and it causes not just for me, it's, most of the time I'm not involved in the title side, the contract to close or the transaction coordination side or any of that. But when big title issues come up, especially when there's big checks on the line, I'm on it. My business partner, Jonathan, who is on it. Our office managers, like everyone it's like an all hands on deck thing because time is absolutely of the essence. And inherently it always occurs when someone's going through a scenario where they're getting ready to move out of town or they're going out of the country or they're going into foreclosure and the timeline's ticking down or they have a couple of days before it goes to the courthouse steps. It's just time and time and time again. We had one earlier, not this year because we're in 2020 now in January, but mid last year, mid 19, where we had about 68 grand, almost 70 grand in profit on the hook. And it was just a normal deal. And the woman was elderly and she wanted to sell the house and all was good. And then, we had a deed of release that was never filed. So there's an old deed on there, deed of trust that was showing up on title and the bank had been sold twice and we couldn't get a hold of anybody. And after about, 6 weeks of digging, unfortunately, and as terrible as it sounds, but the woman passed away during that process, which brought in a whole onslaught of additional issues because they didn't have, a beneficiary deed. They didn't have a will or a trust. So it caused all this stuff. There's all the infighting within the family. And, not only was there a big number on the hook for us because we had a specific user that was willing to pay substantially above market for that property, but in that scenario, the family had so many more issues. It's so much easier for the family if they would have had cash in hand than having to deal with property and probate. And oh man, it was such
that's one of the benefits of having the title company is that all their title work is done in-house. So within 24 hours. That's
huge. Do you do that for everyone? Is that kind of your niche, 24-hour title work turnaround?
Yep.
That's huge. So what?
I'm not saying it's clean. I'm saying we're finding all defects within 24 hours.
Well, that's huge. And finding that out. Now, the variables that we typically come across, and I'm sure you do too, is getting the correct information from the seller, we call it TRID. I'm sure you probably call it TRID too, right? Essentially the client information form. I think that's a federal thing. But, getting that information turned around quickly enough where we have all of the loan numbers and all of the stuff.
One of the things that we've implored upon all the wholesalers, not that they've necessarily done it.
Sure.
But we've given them copies of the documents and say, hey, the best time to get it is when you're in front of the seller having them sign the contract.
100%. And the
smart ones do it.
Yeah. I don't even know what to say about that. The answer is yes. 85% of the time we get that. And generally there's some random reason why it's not, not picked up at that time or not filled out, or they don't have all of the information, or, it's maybe an absentee seller and they're at the property of, that they're selling, but not their home. So they don't have the files, they don't have the loan numbers, whatever it would be. There's always something. Right. And inherently those are always the ones that have the biggest issues because the title. Oh,
100%.
The title will get pulled and we'll have the data. And then all of a sudden like, oh, but we didn't have this, or we didn't have that, or whatever. Or, oh, okay, that they were married and they're separated, but we need the spouse to sign off on the sale. Missouri, where I'm at, Missouri is a marriage state. So both parties have to sign off on it, whether or not they're on the title or not. I don't know if you guys have that, but so it causes a lot of these little random hiccups. Oh yeah. That's always a fun one.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest piece of that is obviously having the vertical integration of having the title company in hand, but then also the 24-hour turnaround so that you can know of the issues fast enough to be able to solve them quickly enough. And then the big piece that was really cool to hear you talk about was you said the name, happiness officer. Was that right? Is that what you said?
Director of happiness.
Director of happiness.
Director of happiness.
So having that person on there, to like make sure that what that gets around is reoccurring problems, right? Where it's not the same thing coming up time and time again. You're
right.
aware of the problem, and then hopefully you have the director of happiness. Sounds like crazy saying that. The director of happiness working with your, I guess, partner, your title partner, or whoever, the operator, the integrator, to solve those problems quickly so that it's not a reoccurring issue, right?
Yep.
I mean, you're not going to get 80% of the wholesale business if you keep having reoccurring issues. I can't imagine. So cool. So let's talk about as you've been scaling and doing all these different things and building out all these new businesses, or at least working to find the right folks to help build out these businesses. Let's talk about the leadership role and kind of what your role is on these and kind of how you've been able to build these and what it's looked like.
Yeah. So, I think a big part of it is this gave me some clarity when I read Rocket Fuel by Gino Wickman, who also wrote Traction, a phenomenal book. But, it wasn't until I read Rocket Fuel that I got more clarity in my role and responsibility. And my role and responsibility is just being the guy that tells everyone which way to row the boat. That's really it, right? Yep. So I have to have an integrator, and integrator has to basically hold everyone else accountable. And I'm horrible holding people accountable. That's just not my thing, right? Sure. And so having that clarity really helped me. And then when I partnered up with Max Jimenez in 2018 to go hard on the wholesale intentionally, I did it passively since 2012, but intentionally, I mean, I was waiting till I found the guy to help really run it. And Max actually worked for me for a stint in 2016 as a caller. Okay. And so I actually, when he was working with me, I had this vision of him running my wholesale division down the road as he moved up. Unfortunately, he quit, but he also came back as a partner. So he came back to fill that role in the end anyway. Sure. Right. But he's I wouldn't say he's the best integrator. We have the best integrator now, but he was really, really good at taking ideas and running with it, because there's no shortage of great ideas. I mean, I want to say in our super group mastermind, there's like a huge jam at least once a week in that Facebook group, right? Oh, so there's no shortage of good ideas, but ideas without execution is a waste of time. So Max is pretty good at making some of our ideas happen. And then Kristin's taking it to a whole nother level. Absolutely. Well, and now if he can just kind of operate and do the things, and then she can implement the new stuff. I mean, now you've got a power team, and you're absolutely right. I mean, there is no shortage of good ideas. And honestly, there's no real shortage of opportunity out there. I mean, there's opportunity everywhere. Right. It's just being 100%. Able to implement. And I mean, you could very easily go and look at folks that have great ideas or have bought properties or companies at huge discounts that should absolutely work, but have no basis or no one on their team to help operate it. And that thing just goes plummeting down super, super fast. I've seen it a ton. And given that my background was banking, we saw it a ton on that front too. It's just folks that just didn't have the capability or the team to be able to operate, no matter how good of a deal you buy or how much capital you have to throw at it. If you don't have an operator and or an integrator to help kind of roll out that vision and do it, and you're expecting, I don't know, to go based on what you think or how it should go, it's just never going to work out that well. Oh, you hit the nail on the head there. And it's really, really cool to kind of hear you really intentionally kind of touch on that and kind of push it through. Yeah.
Can you get a little bit into what changed with rocket fuel? Like what were some of the big pieces that came out of rocket fuel that kind of helped push that along, specifically for the folks that haven't read the book? I mean, they should, but in relation to this, like what were some of the big takeaways?
You know, I would say the biggest takeaway was how lousy the communicator I was. And I knew I was a bad communicator because, you know, my wife told me, my employees told me,
Right.
you know, and I actually went through a lot of assistants where I would hire them and then they would either they would either quit or I'd fire them, right? And what ended up happening was I needed someone that just knew what was going on inside my head, you know, like how would Steve handle this problem? And after a while, I found that person. I actually have two people that were pretty good in that role. One went off to go do her own thing, which is great. Another one was amazing half the time. Another half the time, she was crazy. But the half the time that she was working, she was amazing. Eventually, you know, we moved on from her. And then I've hired and fired. And I've got Summer, my right-hand person, who's absolutely amazing. But she's not amazing because I'm good. She's amazing because she understands my thought process, right? But now that I understand it, now I know why I was such a lousy communicator. And I actually gave that book to Summer. It's like, hey, I read this book. You need to read it too, because now you can actually understand how to communicate with me effectively. And so that was my biggest takeaway, is that as a visionary, you just expect everyone to know what you're thinking and why you're thinking that way, which is a ridiculous assumption, but it's the assumption I've had my whole life.
It's a ridiculous assumption, except it is the assumption that every visionary has. That's the takeaway. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just it. Like, why don't you get this? This is super clear. Why doesn't everyone see that? Well, just the fucking title.
Why wouldn't you do it this way?
We get the title of the role. You're the visionary. You have the vision. Why wouldn't everyone see your vision? Well, because they're not the visionary, right? Right. Everyone thinks that way. Damn, I'm kind of getting excited here. Just knocked my headphones off. I certainly think that way, and it drives me crazy when people don't like when people don't get what I'm saying or see my vision, and I have to. I mean, 75% of the time I can kind of calm that down, but 25% of the time it just frustrates the hell out of me until I figure it out later. But that's so cool to hear, because I've read a majority of Rocket Fuel, but it's been a little while. I definitely need to go back and reread it. Traction's changed my life. It changed our business. It allowed us to do all these additional bolt-ons, and it really allowed us to kind of operate in a far more strategic and more efficient manner. And it was just a huge game changer. So the fact
it's an unfair advantage. If you're using Traction and the other guy isn't, you just have an unfair advantage. It's
unbelievable. I mean, and that's a great way to put it, because it really is. I mean, it is nuts how much we've progressed since we started implementing it. And I don't think we could possibly have done, not that what we're doing is all that crazy, but I know that we would be at half the production if it weren't for Traction, I think. Oh, it's unbelievable. So, all right. So you've been scaling, been doing all this crazy stuff. You've realized that you weren't a very good communicator. Rocket Fuel helped pull that out of you. You had two really good folks that saw inside your brain. Now they're no longer with you. You have this new person. Is that Kristin, the implementer you were talking about, or is that someone different?
No, that's Summer. Summer is she's been with me for over 2 years now. Let's see. You know what? We're coming up over 3 years now.
Oh, wow.
Because she started at the same time as Max. So 2016. She's been with me for over 3 years. And she's just amazing. She does everything that I need without requiring my input. And that's like one of the biggest things, right? Like as a visionary, you just want to go, go, go. Like don't slow me down. Right. And so she's able to tackle most of the hurdles before it gets to me.
So give me a couple examples. So, well, two things before we get that, because I'm going to want some examples, but deeper than that, are you like from a hierarchical standpoint or from a company organizational standpoint, is there some kind of parent company that you have these folks employed under, and then that's kind of part of the Steve Trang thing, and then you're applying that as your ownership piece? Or are these folks employed by separate sectors?
So Trang Holdings employs a few people.
Okay.
Right? I'm on payroll. Summer's on payroll. And a couple other people are on payroll.
Okay.
One or two other people are on payroll there. And then in Max Cash Offers, that's where Kristin, our integrator for Max Cash Offers, is employed. That's where she's paid out of.
Okay. And Max obviously is your partner there,
Yeah.
Max Cash Offers. Yeah. And okay, that makes perfect sense. Okay. So then Summer, she's up there. So give me some examples in which, you've been able to have this person that kind of sees inside your head, that is able to kind of head off some of the headwinds and some of the issues that really slow down and frustrate an integrator. Or I'm sorry, frustrate a visionary is what I meant to say there.
So I would say right now, the biggest thing is, and this might be a horrible answer, I can't even articulate an example right now because I handed off my emails to her. So my emails.
Fuck it. Get her on the line. Let's go. I'm kidding.
Right. So she handles all of my emails now. Right. So I don't even have to check my emails. Now I'll check my emails, when there's some downtime.
Sure.
But I can go 24 hours without checking my email and not be worried about it.
That's
right.
Huge. Yeah.
So she handles that. She handles my personal stuff. So I just moved and she did the change of mail address, which is, something you can have just a regular personal assistant do. But she runs everything. She's the person at the office, at the brokerage at all times if anyone needs anything.
Mm-hmm.
She handles all the brokerage personnel stuff. She handles all the compensation, so paying people. Transaction closes, she bills, she's in there, she's in the Chase bank account, she's doing the direct deposits. We have a managing broker for the brokerage, but she does all the brokerage and team stuff. And she was the assistant for Max Cash Offers until we brought Kristin on board.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Really her job is to make my life easier.
Is she 40 hours a week?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, she's supposed to be 40 hours a week. I'll catch her working on the weekends. I'll send her a text message and tell her to stop.
Got it.
Got it. We're going through a brokerage audit right now. So she's coming in tomorrow to work by herself because she'll have some quiet time.
Okay.
But besides this coming weekend, any other time she was working, if I was happening to be in my email and see that she was working, if she's responding to stuff, I'll send her a text message and tell her to stop working.
Well, that's awful kind of you. No, that's awesome. So 40 hours, except she's sneaking in extra hours to get stuff done, which is awesome, right? Mm-hmm. To have that person and to have the relationship where you're
proactive, wants to fix things.
Yeah, dude, yeah. I love that. So, man, this is really, really cool to hear about. So as we kind of understand your corporate structure, your structure and kind of how you interlay all these different things, how do your level 10 meetings look? Do you have an overarching one and then individual ones for all your different operations? And for those folks listening, level 10 is one of the big pieces of traction. It's really kind of your weekly meeting to get into the operations of the business, talk about your KPIs, talk about the to-dos that you have on a weekly and monthly basis, and then also any issues or big opportunities you have within that business. So the level 10 is a weekly meeting that's typically 60 to 90 minutes, depending on the size of the operation, and it's kind of high level stuff. And then you vet out the issues that need specific either breakout meetings or need to be dealt with on a higher level basis.
Yeah.
So breaking out of that,
our Max Cash Offers, we run a 90-minute meeting every Monday morning, 9 a.m. And sometimes it's 80 minutes. A lot of times it's 2 hours.
Okay. So you don't have a set, or do you say 2 hours is the amount of time that you have for that meeting? And then if it's done in 80, great.
The agenda is 90 minutes.
Okay.
The agenda is 90 minutes, but if we have more issues and if we don't have anywhere we need to go, then we'll keep talking about those issues.
Got it. So instead of making a breakout
majority of the time is issues. Yeah.
Okay. So instead of setting breakout meetings,
is running.
I cut you off.
We don't do that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. We don't have breakout meetings, right? Because it's me, Max, and Kristin. Everyone that's important is there.
Got it.
So we do. The biggest time is issues, which I would say is probably an hour, and then the other majority of time is the pipeline, right? Which is not part of the level 10 meeting, but we can't run a level 10 meeting without the pipeline.
So you just incorporate that in as a separate piece, and that makes sense why it could go an extra half an hour because you're actually digging through the pieces. Okay, that's cool.
Yep.
So that is your Max
Cash. So we do the level 10 meeting.
Mm-hmm.
After Max Cash Offers, we'll talk about disruptive solutions in there as well. because it's so closely integrated. And then with the brokerage, we do, I want to say it's once a month. It's not as consistent as it should be, to be honest. But the brokerage doesn't make as much money as the wholesale business. So
sure, so you prioritize.
And focus on where the highest income activity is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is good to hear, right? Because folks that are out there probably are in the same boat, and they're either kicking themselves or not doing it as actively, or they're like, okay, well, yeah, I do this one, I do that one. And it's just good to hear that other folks that are performing at a high level kind of run into the same issues. But obviously the goal would be to obviously have the consistency, and there's probably an argument to be made that if you had the consistency of a weekly, bi-weekly, or a very set monthly meeting, it would probably make more money. Some people might say, right?
You can make that argument, but we know every hour I put into my brokerage versus every hour I put in my wholesale, I know which one's going to bring in more.
Sure. Inherently, yeah, just the sales cycle, the speed to profitability, and the margins are greater on a wholesale deal than a brokerage deal.
Mm-hmm.
Well, cool. So you have that. Do you have an overarching like executive level 10 where you kind of talk about all the businesses with you and Summer and I don't know, any other partners or anything along those lines?
Quarterly.
Okay, so
quarterly. And that's
okay.
And that's just me and Summer.
Okay. Do you have a controller or anyone that's really high on the finance and accounting side?
Yes. So I brought someone on as she's a bookkeeper, and this might sound embarrassing, I don't know, but the first 12 years my financial books were a mess. And it wasn't until the middle of last year, April of last year, that I hired this gal, and she changed my life.
Okay.
And so I meet with her every Monday at 11 a.m. So right after my level 10 with Max, she's just down the street. I go over to her office and review all my books for an hour.
Wow. Weekly.
And so weekly,
that's
all operations for an hour. And what we're looking for in there is the P&L. That's obvious, right? Balance sheet as well. So she's created a spreadsheet for me where every business and P&L for every business for every month, right? So I can look at January, February, March for all my businesses together. So we can look at it individually, or we could zoom in and say, okay, here's where you are for all your companies.
Yep.
So now I can track in there as well my P&L for every business year to date, and then also my percentages based off, or what my take home is based off of my ratios for all my different partnerships.
Okay, yeah. For each of the individual businesses, you can see what you're drawing from each.
And then on top of that, based off simple numbers, now we're also tracking cash balances. So now every Friday, she gets going on at the end of business every Friday, we now know the balances for every bank account. And so what this does is it allows us to keep track as well for future projections, because I went from this person where my business felt pretty good to now I've got crystal clarity.
Yeah.
On what's going on in my business.
Making decisions. Yeah. Which is huge. So and that's so awesome to hear, because there's very few folks at your level, at my level, that have that real financial strength, the real financial understanding, that controller, or this person's much higher level than a bookkeeper, it sounds like, because she's doing essentially cash flow analysis to some degree.
She is. And so what I did when I brought her on, or I didn't bring her on, when I signed on with her, because she's a bookkeeper for everybody else, she's Profit First certified. So, that was a big component. But then on top of that, I told her, like, look, I need to run my business like Vern Harnish, like the Rockefellers. So I need you to read simple numbers. I need you to run my business. I need you to give me the kind of confidence that they have in scaling up on my finances side. So Scaling Up is a book that I think complements Traction really well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in there's a finance section, which is written by the guy that wrote Simple Numbers. And so I told her, like, look, I need you to give me this clarity, for my business.
Yeah, 100%. So I assume she hadn't read Simple Numbers or Scaling Up prior to meeting you.
Nope.
Now, do you know how big of an impact that's had on her with her other clients?
I don't, but what I do know is I talked to her about, like, I asked her, you know, she's a bookkeeper, and it was very clear to me she has a different concept. She has a different self-image than you and I do,
Mm-hmm.
and her concept of money is a little bit different than you and I have, right? I mean, you and I, we have our ridiculously high self-worth. Just that's how we are because we're visionaries
Sure.
and we're business owners, right? We just think we're worth more than everyone else thinks we're worth. That's just kind of how it is, right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I remember when I asked her, like, what it was going to cost, you know, she's being a profit first certified, this and that, how much is going to cost me per month? I was ready to spend $1,000, right? For me, like, I'm willing to pay for greatness.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
she's like, you know, it's going to be $600 a month. Is that going to be okay? It's like, yeah, I can live with that.
Dude, I mean, you said 1,000. It seems to me like with the amount of stuff you've got going on, like I would have guessed even much, much higher than that. So 600 a month seems just crazy.
Right. So now I'm paying her $1,200 a month. Now that she's doing the cash flow analysis and all this, and now I'm paying her more. But what I want to have, what my goal is, if I can train her up to this point, then I can sell her services to everyone else in our niche, right? So
Yep.
I can go to other people and say, look, if you want her to run your business, your books, like she runs my books, that's $1,000 a month.
Yeah.
And then, you know, she keeps 600, I keep 400. She's making more money, and I'm making additional revenue, helping people as well.
Yeah,
So.
I love that. Actually, we should talk more about that offline because we have been doing that a little bit for a while, and we've created some spreadsheets and some systems and processes to do cash flow analysis. We really refined it about 1.5 years ago, and now we've got it. And where it was our bookkeeper, just like this, except we hired this person in-house. So now she solely works for us, with the exception of the folks that we kind of outsource to the other clients that you were mentioning. So they come in and we make a little bit of a spread on all the folks that we bring in, and she's helping all of them kind of do all of that on their side.
Right.
But
like she's making like $300, $400 a month right now with her existing clients, and she has a hard time getting them. And if I could just give her all this business and she's going to make more money per client, it's a win-win for everybody.
Absolutely. I mean, getting clients or the sales side of her business should be so easy. It's just, she's just obviously plugging in the wrong group, because everyone I talk to that is scaling or has a big enough operation to need this, or is at a point they recognize that, hey, this is silly that I don't understand my numbers enough, that they can't find that person. It is so difficult to find that person, and or the handoff from that, the wholesale group or the real estate investors group to that person is poor. So the variable that kind of bridges that gap, and we're off topic from where we were going to go, but I think this is super important, is what we've been able to do is kind of integrate them into our CRM so that they can see when the transactions are coming in and going out, and actually be able to calculate what that gross profit would be, so that they can generate and know what's coming in. They know about what the outflow is from a payroll, from an overhead standpoint, from X, Y, and Z. So you can very easily look at a week-to-week cash flow analysis and cash balance analysis and say tick, 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 tick. And it's been revolutionary. So you couple that with Traction, and we actually incorporate that into our Traction report, where we can see cash balances and inflows and outflows and kind of where we stand. And we like to, our sales cycle from kind of putting marketing out the door to cashing a check is typically about 45 days. So we can kind of know how far we need to be out and know when we're going to start running into issues, or if a big deal or two fall through, what kind of impact it's going to be, and how much cash reserves or how much working capital lines of credit we need to have on hand to be able to
and that confidence from knowing that information is so powerful. It's hard to describe.
And I think almost no one has it. I think there are very, very few folks that have that kind of analysis or have that kind of tracking to be able to do that. And you're absolutely right. It kind of going back to, hey, it's an unfair advantage, or it's a disproportionate advantage of level 10s or of Traction. Yeah. I think the same kind of goes from the cash flow analysis and the analysis of being able to have that tight of a grip on your financial information.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool, man. I didn't expect the conversation to go that way. I didn't know that you were doing that. I just assumed that with as many offshoots and partnerships and whatnot, that you had something like that. So it's interesting to hear. It's just difficult, especially when you have X percentage ownership in this and Y percentage ownership in that. And maybe you've got, a set, and it wouldn't be a salary, but a set distribution amount that you receive from one entity and another one you don't, and kind of how that all flows up. As we, 3 years ago, we spent a lot of times kind of reorganizing and restructuring kind of how our entities flow and setting up an S corp for our active businesses and just a standard partnership for the more rental based businesses, and kind of making that all go. But it's a complicated structure when you have this many entities and different partners and different ownership shares and different properties or different companies, so it gets complicated.
Right.
Oh, but yeah, like I said, I don't think many folks do. Do you know anybody else in the, in the masterminds that you're running or in Supergroup or any of these other kind of high level, masterminds or organizations that are doing something like that?
Yeah. Two people come to mind, actually. My buddy Pace Morby, he was on the show actually this week and looking to be going to be our biggest episode of all time.
Whew,
And then Ryan Panetta, he actually just launched his thing, I want to say last week. Same thing, because he's a flipper, and he's in all these flipping masterminds and so on. And the same thing, not a lot of people have this clarity. Not a lot of people know their numbers, and so he's gone out and done it. Now that he's done it and he's satisfied with it, and enough people have asked him for it, he's charging for it.
Well, and Ryan especially, because he's doing so many rehabs that if you didn't have your arms around it, you could get a bad spot really fast with what he's got going on.
Yeah.
And he's a relatively young dude too, right? To have the foresight to be able to.
Freaking kid.
Dude, it's crazy. I mean, he's like 27 or something, right? Like, I mean, he's really young.
Yeah.
To have the.
I think he just turned 30.
Okay. But even still, to be at the level that he's at and had the responsibility and have the quantity of deals. I mean, because to do 100 wholesale deals is a feat. It's impressive. But to do 100 rehabs in a year is a whole nother level, or whatever his number is, if it's 70 or whatever. But I know he's doing a lot. And
I think it's 100. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's I'm really, really impressed with, and I don't know him super well. Just through the couple of times, but it's been interesting. Who was the first gentleman that you mentioned?
Pace Morby.
Pace Morgan.
Morby. He's another wholesaler in Phoenix.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know who he is, but it sounds like I should.
It's my run partner. We run 3 times a week.
That's cool.
And he's just another guy doing 20 deals a month in Phoenix.
There's a lot of you guys. The number of guys that are doing 200 plus wholesale deals in Phoenix is shocking. But it's awesome.
It's outrageous.
I mean, to have an operation that does 200 wholesale deals is a feat. I mean, 100 is tough. 200 is 3, 4, 5 times as hard. Yeah. I think. I mean, the amount of back office, the amount of transactions, the amount of headaches and burdens and things that come up at that quantity is impressive. I mean, you're contracting 6 and bringing 4 plus, 4.5 a week to the finish line. Right. Having the amount of hurdles that come up is super impressive. So cool. So kind of digging into all that, where do you see the economy? How much longer do you think we can keep churning at this rate? And where do you see the?
Yeah, before we get into that, can I talk about the integrator role?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier, Kristin, we kind of talked about her, but like she's been such a game changer because, you and I are in a mastermind together. I started another mastermind not too long ago. There's, we talk about these great, these no shortage of ideas, but man, like I would go to these events, conferences, seminars, masterminds, and I would write down all of these things and like almost nothing ever got done.
Right.
And my coach would just like dig into me, like, why aren't you doing this? You know, it's important. You know, it's going to make you money. Right. Like, and I would get a good amount done,
Right.
but nowhere near what I should be getting done. Right. If I want to be like the guy that's on stage who's talking about how much money he's making and this and that, I need to make these things happen. And the reality is I wouldn't get all these things done because we're visionaries. And that clarity is the other part of Rocket Fuel is the integrator role. And we hired Kristin, and she's done amazing for us. She's only been with us since about the end of November. And what she's done for us, I am confident will more than double our business in 2020, because now every time I hear an idea, we talk about it in Traction on our level 10 meeting. It's in issues. We create these new items on Kristin's plate, and it just gets done. So we had a meeting about a couple months ago, and it was there's a lady in town who works for another wholesaling team. So it's fascinating to me that she's this HOA expert, but she doesn't have a team, right? She works for somebody else.
Yeah.
And so we basically picked her brain, me, Max, and Kristin, for an hour 15. Like, if I wanted to run an amazing HOA foreclosure operation, what do I need to do? And she broke it down for us. Here are the 6 things you need to do if you want to run a business that specializes in HOA foreclosures. Took those 6 things down. Next level 10 meeting, we talk about that meeting. We talk about those 6 to-do items. We put it as one to-do task, right? Get these 6 things done. And less than a month later, they're done.
Wow.
If we were waiting for me to get it done, man, you know, it's those things where like we sit in one of these events, and like in the back of my mind, like, holy crap, that whole HOA thing, I was still supposed to do that. Let me write that down right now while I'm in this other thing. And it would get done eventually, 2-3 years later.
Yeah, so you truncated that from you truncated from 2 to 3 years to 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, it's done. She's created a policy and procedure now to hand off to her virtual assistants. So now the virtual assistants know exactly what they need to do to go in there. Here's the process, download it, and now we're skip tracing it, and the whole process. And now our guys are getting text notifications of when people are responding to the HOA foreclosure leads. How hot is an HOA foreclosure lead, right? Who else is chasing HOA foreclosures? We know about them.
Honestly, like,
who's going after them?
Yeah, I don't know. We sure as hell aren't. As a matter of fact, like, I've heard about them a few times. It wouldn't even have been on my top 100 things to look into until you mentioned it.
Yeah.
45 minutes ago.
Right. So we got that. Someone told me that to start a nonprofit. And I want to say it took me like I want to say like April of last year. I had this idea. We're going to start a nonprofit. It's going to help us with our wholesale business.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing happened. And nothing happened. And nothing happened. Nothing happened. We put our Christmas plate. She went to our attorneys. What do we need to do to start a nonprofit? What do we have to do for taxes? What do I do for this and that? Insurance, right? Because you have to get insured as a nonprofit.
Yeah.
Took care of that. So we now have a nonprofit organization up and running. Whereas, man, if you're waiting for me, it's just, when is it going to happen?
Yeah. It would probably a substantial amount of time. I mean, because here's the thing. You go to those masterminds with a to-do list of big picture things that still haven't been completed.
Mm-hmm.
Then you pick up a few more. And I always tell myself, I'm like, come away with 2 items, maybe a third, but 2 solid things that you think you can implement. Those are the 2 you need to focus on. Otherwise, you come away with 6 pages of stuff, 20 good ideas that I always go back through and read them on the flight home, and I triple star the ones that are important. And next thing you know, I've got 20 triple starred items on that, from that meeting. And then you to honor all to honor none, which means, nothing has a priority and nothing gets done. So I kind of had to say, if you can get 2, the 2 biggest takeaways, get those done. And hopefully one gets to the finish line, really,
right.
At least in that period of time. Otherwise, just like you said, 2 or 3 years later, like, you know what? I think text marketing is probably a good idea. Let's do it. And, while everyone else has been rocking it for 1.5 years, 2 years. So
you're Marlon Brando, right? I could have been a contender.
That's right. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. But no, I mean, I love that idea. And it's crazy to hear the amount of stuff that, like, just these two examples, and then a couple other items that we kind of talked about, like, and she got hired in what, mid to late November, you said, and which means that she's probably been working for you like really for like 4 weeks, because this year was miserable for productivity with the way Christmas and New Year's hit, and all that kind of craziness.
So let me give you another tip that's helped with her as well. So
keep 'em
I'm sure I'm not the first person to say this, but you want to have your assistants document everything they do, so if anything ever happens, you can replace them, right?
Yep.
That's not smart. Everyone says that, and it never happens, because you always tell your system to do it, and it just never happens.
No.
And so, like, you look at 7 habits of highly effective people, right? Important, not important; urgent, not urgent.
Yep.
And documenting your business falls under the important but not urgent category.
Yes.
And so in our level 10 meeting, one of her metrics is creating one process, so that she does have to set a time. Even though it's not urgent, you need to document one process every single week. And what's been powerful of that is that now I actually have policies for my business, but then everyone in our coaching program also gets the benefits. Like, here's the policy you created last week. Here's the procedure you created last week.
Yep.
So we're improving our business, and B, we're providing value to our coaching students. So giving her the responsibility to document one thing as a metric.
That's huge.
It's huge for us.
So, and this is probably in the weeds a bit, but so is she just bullet pointing that? Is she creating a true like process map with swim lanes and who does what, or how does that look? How does that look for you?
Sweet process. It's pictures. It's screen captures, right? Not a lot of videos. We do some videos with Lou, but it's predominantly in Sweet Process. I think it's sweetprocess.com, which I heard about from Matt Larson. And she just creates all the processes in there.
Are you saying Sweet Process or Sweep Process?
SWEET.
Okay, Sweet Process. Okay. That's interesting. I've never heard of it. I'm going to dig into it. We use Lucid charts for process mapping, and we've defined a lot of the stuff. And that was kind of one of the big takeaways out of Traction, was process map your 10 biggest processes, and then define, who's responsible for what. And then you can know where the breaks are, and so on and so forth. But I'm sure I know for a fact that there are lots and lots of smaller processes that we don't have fully defined, even as hard as we try, right? So
I even have it for our coaching students. Like, look, you guys create the wish list for the policies. Yeah. So now it's even easier. What procedures do you need to see? Great. Kristin, now you have your checklist of procedures you need to create for the next few weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you guys use, hold on one second. I'm just drawing a blank on the name of this program. Do you guys use Asana for your task management and things of that nature?
No, everything is run through. So for Traction, we use traction.tools.
Oh, okay.
And then there we have the to-do list. Yeah, we paid $150, a month for it. But for me, it seems like a really cheap deal.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I've seen that. We just use Google Sheets for our KPI tracking, and then we bunch tons into Asana for task management. But it's 6 and 1, half dozen the other, I'm sure. But so bouncing back to Kristin, because I'm super happy that you pushed that through to kind of talk about this more, because it's such a key role for a lot of folks. So you've had her for 2 months now, 2+ months. And obviously there's a lot of success, and you are just speaking so highly of the role and of her. It's awesome to hear. How did you hire her, and how does she get paid?
So she came from, actually, she was a coaching student. So she was a referral from an agent in my office who's since left, but she came in to my coaching program. And, just the finances weren't where she wanted it to be. I was like, look, how about instead of you paying me every month to learn about my business, you just work for me, and you're going to see everything about my business. Yeah. Right. Because she was already local. And so I brought her on. We're paying her $18 an hour, which is a lot less than what she was making before. Okay. But the intent is she works with me for a year, and then eventually, she can do this on her own if she wants. So she didn't like the $18 an hour. She's like, I got to make more than that. And she's like, look, if I work for you 90 days and you love us, you love what I do, is there room for a raise? And I told her, I'm happy to have that conversation when the time comes along. And what the intent was, our baseline, $20K a month net, as our wholesale operation. We're not the biggest players in town. We never tell anyone that we are. Last year, we brought in just under 230,000 net between Max and me, right?
Okay.
So my intent when the time comes is to have her, anything over 20K for a month net, we'll pay her 5%.
That's fair.
Because now she's making a percentage of what she's helped us bring in.
Yeah. So you're saying, hey, this is where we're likely going to be anyway. You help us implement all of this stuff and it will have an impact. And then it's like a profit share over a base year, a base amount.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. That is awesome.
Yeah.
Only downfall is you have to,
equitable interest.
What's that?
She's got equitable interest in our business.
Yeah. You guys are rowing in the same direction. So, you're doing the right thing as your visionary. Your communications are right.
Mm-hmm.
Was it tough? I mean, obviously you're talking about your numbers just openly to the public, which is cool. Has that always been an easy thing for you to do? And was it tough kind of opening up your books to someone new like this and saying, hey, here's where we're at. We're going to have to show you what was earned.
No. I think one of the things that I've been told is that I am unnecessarily honest and if you look at superpowers when I was a salesperson, right? I'm still a salesperson, but that's not my only thing now.
Right.
But as a salesperson, my superpower was that people always instantly trusted me. We're not going to be best friends. We're not going to be watching the Super Bowl together. We're not hanging out, right? I'm not going to be calling you. You're not going to be calling me after this transaction's over.
Right.
But when we work together, that I'm going to tell you everything you need to know, and I've got your back no matter what. And so, transparency, disarmingly honest, tell you things you don't want to hear, right? I mean, I'm honest. So you're going to hear things you don't want to hear, but you're also going to hear things that other people won't say. And so for me, that's something that served me well my whole career.
That's
in fact,
awesome.
During our last workshop, we actually broke out our P&L. Like, here was our P&L for our wholesaling business for 2019. And the takeaway was not like, man, these guys aren't that big or this or that. The takeaway was, wow, they're actually going to show me how to build a business, including all components of the business. It's not just like direct mail and bandit signs, get out there. It's
right.
Everything you need to know to run a wholesaling business.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's so cool to see or to hear, because I can't imagine there's almost anybody else that does that. And what everyone else does is the standard easy stuff. I mean, all of the expenses and management and payroll and knowing how to hire and how to come up with the right comp structure and when to fire and balance sheet or P&L management and balance sheet management and all these other pieces play such a integral role, especially for folks in our industry that are getting into wholesaling. Maybe they don't have a ton of business background otherwise, but they're very good at sales and they understand real estate and they like it, and then they have success. And what you see a lot of times are folks that, they do that, but then once it's time to scale, they have no real training or understanding of how to do that. They hand tasks off too early. They hand integral tasks off too early, and then they fail and they zip right back in. It's kind of the E-Myth kind of concept, right? Where it just immediately triggers. They don't have management and leadership skills. They haven't kind of built out those muscles or those skill sets yet. And
they don't know what they don't know.
Absolutely. And
they're about to get kicked in the teeth pretty hard by the free market
over and over and over again. And and how they react will show you who they are, right? Are they going to zip back and be just a small group or not? But at least understanding it, having someone walk through it, having them show you, their actual P&L. I mean, that's a really, really interesting concept.
Yeah. I wish someone did that for me when I first got started,
Yeah.
I wish someone told me hire an integrator from day one. No one tells you that, right? Like, all these things we're doing now, I wish someone told me how much time I would have saved. Yeah.
You can and it's just in the beginning, you're trying to, and I don't know if you were, but I think most people, and I know we sure as hell were, it's just on a shoestring budget, right? It's like, oh, I can't afford that,
Mhm.
but I will someday, and we'll make that change. And then next thing you know, you're down
Right.
some other path and some other path, and then you're just further away from that. And it's like, yeah, if you were going to build a business, if you were going to build a tech-based business, or if you're going to be private equity backed, I mean, that's the very first thing they would like. You need an integrator, you need an operator, you need someone to
Mhm.
do. You can't have the vision, go out, raise capital, do this, do that, and operate the business, build the systems and processes, integrate these new ideas. Like, it just physically can't occur. And it's going to take you 2,
Right.
3, 4 times as long, because just by your simple personality type, that would never otherwise be your inherent skill set, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, you're absolutely right. So that's a huge, huge takeaway. If you're just starting out, if you're medium size, hire an integrator, hire an operator, get that person in. If you don't know if you can afford it, then get controller or your bookkeeper to run your numbers and see what it looks
Mhm.
like, and then apply a model like you're talking about. You know, $18 an hour is a very reasonable rate. I think anyone can afford someone like that. At least a
Yeah.
majority of the folks who are listening to this, and then have a backside kicker where they're paid on performance. Boom. Now it's best of both worlds. And that person's probably going to make substantially, Kristin's probably going to make substantially more than she would have ever thought by doing so. Because if she's doing the things that we're talking about, the benefit is going to be huge.
Right.
No, that's,
Yeah, and that was one of our rocks, actually. Our rock for Q1 was 3 HOA deals. That's the rocks
okay.
for her.
That's awesome. Are you doing, so when you say HOA, are you also talking about condo association? Are you lumping those together? Are you just talking
anything
about?
that's a foreclosure sale. HOA foreclosure, HOA judgment, HOA liens, anything related to HOA, we're looking to acquire and wholesale 3 HOA transactions.
That's
in her rocks.
It's a big takeaway. Honestly, I don't even know what those numbers look like. I've never even heard of an HOA foreclosure in our market. So I don't wonder if it's market specific or if I'm just totally missing the boat. That's interesting.
Yeah, no one's going after it here. Or there's only a handful of people going after it here.
I mean, because obviously it's behind everything, right? I mean, it's behind your mortgage, it's behind anything else that they'd be defaulting on. It's clearly behind real estate taxes. You know,
but the HOA can foreclose on you here in our market. I don't know if your market, but the HOA can foreclose on you in this market.
And take precedent over the mortgage?
They wouldn't take precedent over the mortgage. They would have to take over that mortgage.
Right. Okay. Subject to the mortgage. I mean, but like HOA,
but the mortgage isn't that much.
So like
if the mortgage balance is low enough, they'll do it.
But how much are these HOA balances? Are they big enough to, I mean, are we
15,000?
Okay.
15, 20,000.
And what's foreclosure?
Because if you're behind, if you miss your payment, right? Your HOA is like $200 a month, whatever, right? And you miss 2 or 3 payments. Okay, it's not that you're behind 600. It's those stupid late fees that compound, and then they can charge you 15% interest on everything you're behind, and then they tack on the attorney's fees, and you put on the 15% on those attorney's fees. Those things rack up really fast. Really fast.
I've seen it in condo associations a lot. We bought a lot of notes on condo associations and whatnot, and had to deal with these big, like, corporate groups that run these condo associations, and they just tack on I mean, it's oftentimes if the amount's 10 grand, the amount of late fees would only make up about a quarter to a third of that, and the remainder is all these other fees.
Yeah, so, it's ridiculous.
That's interesting. Yeah. All right. Well, that's a big takeaway, certainly for me, and then probably for a lot of folks listening. I don't know in our market. I don't want to make this a limited belief. I don't know of that many homeowners associations that are that aggressive, or that the fee amount is that great. But I'm going to dig into it.
These are predominantly, townhouses and condos.
Okay, so they are. Okay. So you're talking townhomes and condos. Yeah. That makes a lot more sense. Okay. Yeah. Okay. No, and honestly, like, I don't know if anyone's talking about this. It's something that I've been digging into a lot lately, but during the recession, well, let me back up. So condos and townhomes were always easy to sell. Even during the recession, they still were financeable, right? Because you have fee simple ownership, your ownership goes up and down, it goes into the land. Condos associations, condos, you own a percentage, a share of the overall thing, over the complex. So the association plays an integral role, because if there's litigation within the association, and if so many of the units were leased versus owned, you ran into all these Fannie, Freddie, FHA financing issues. And a lot of those units weren't financeable during the recession. They changed the rules on what could be financed because that sector of the housing market got hit so hard because of so many condo associations or so many condo buildings being built pre-recession. And so they changed that. So even still, there are a lot of buildings that are unfinanceable with Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA. They've been loosening that up, but that's still a variable. And especially in slightly lower income areas or areas that are still kind of hit by the recession and haven't quite got out and had to result in high levels of rentals, right? So if they're still over that 50% rental rate, or if only, let's say, a quarter of a third of the condo units were actually built. So if the association says it's a 400 unit complex, but only 100 of the units were built and the association docs were never corrected and it's just still in a disarrayed mess, like those become big issues. But I think as the economy gets better and the condos like are kind of getting out of that, I got to believe that in the near future, at some point that those units start to become financeable again. And a lot of these issues aren't
it's happening anymore. Not only is it happening, but because everything's going so well, we're anticipating condo conversions to come back. So yes, it will be financeable.
Converting from apartments to condos. Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, and that makes sense, right? Because you're redoing it. So now you can get up and going. And I would be willing to bet, like, it seems like the West Coast, I'm considering Phoenix West Coast, even though obviously you're not on the coast, but kind of that side, you guys are just so much further along than we are here in the Midwest. So what's happening there will take a little bit of time for it to finally roll out. But that's good to hear. And I think it's happening. We own a fair amount of rental units that are condos that we bought just super cheap during the recession. We bought a bunch of notes on them where banks who were financing the construction. Yeah, I mean, the banks that were financing the construction of them, they Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA couldn't finance the unit sales. So the bank that was financing the construction of the units had to provide the financing for the end users to buy the things. And more times than not, those folks had lower credit standards and they would default. So we would buy the notes from the bank and then run them through. So we still own a handful. And these things were built. They were 2, 3, 5 years old. They were very nicely built and they just couldn't sell. So we're buying them for 20, 30 cents on the dollar and they still rented super well.
Nice.
I think there's still opportunity. I know in our market, there's still opportunity. There are lots of units that still can't get traditional financing because too many units are leased or whatever. And you can buy them at 30 cents on the dollar, rent them out. They still work that way. But once they become financeable, you're going to see a big uptick in valuations. And I think there's still a lot of meat on that bone. And the fact that they're doing condo conversions, the condo conversions that you guys are seeing, are they doing them kind of on a strategic or a systematic basis where they're saying, okay, well, we're going to leave half the units rented. We're going to pull half offline, start to convert them.
Oh, no, I think they got to go. I think they got to go all in.
Totally.
I think they have to for financing reasons.
Well, and that's kind of my point. I didn't know if it was going to that level. Cause I know pre-recession, that was a big piece, right? They'd buy, a developer would buy, 10 apartment buildings in this complex and they would just pick one off at a time, convert it with the goal of having them all converted. And then obviously half of them would never get built out. You know what I'm saying? That was a big piece of kind of what we were saying. Oh, well, that's interesting. So, and that kind of leads into the economy. We've been kind of going over this a lot and I do want to get into a little bit of the leadership and kind of growing pains and opportunities associated with that before we wrap up. But it did allow us to kind of tiptoe into the economy as also kind of talking about the HOA foreclosures and kind of where there's some opportunity there for the listeners to find some additional deals. And then also kind of tiptoed into the fact of having the integrator kind of build that out for you and get that going.
All right.
And so you think you're going to hit
the growing pains.
Yeah, hit the growing pains.
Yeah, the growing pains. So, John Maxwell, he's the godfather of leadership, right? I mean, you're talking leadership and John Maxwell's name doesn't come up and you're following the wrong guys. I don't know who you're following, right? So
John Maxwell's in my group.
yeah. So, one of the things he talks about, and it's a silly question, but how can you tell you're a good leader? And you can tell you're a good leader when you turn around the top of the mountain and you got followers behind you.
Yep.
And so, I'm doing all these fun things, cool things, growing, bolting on, but there's this a little bit of sadness, right? It's a bittersweet moment as well, because some of the people that were there with me from the beginning are no longer around.
Yep.
Right. The culture has changed, the attitude has changed. And, I think I'm being a good steward of my finances, focusing intently on the greatest return on time, right? It's better for my family. I can make a greater impact. But at the end of the day, people are getting lost along the way, right? They no longer see how they fit in your vision. And it's sad because you take someone, one of the coolest things that, I can say is that I've taken a lot of people that were making $30,000 a year and got them to making $300,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
Building out my brokerage, building out agents. I mean, there are agents in my office that are making $600,000-$700,000 a year, right? But there are guys that they no longer feel like they're part of the story. They're no longer part of my journey, and they feel like they got to start their own journey, which I don't, begrudge them in any way. But part of the growing pains is, there's this kind of parting where their story and my story no longer line up. So there's some sadness there. It's unfortunate, but it's also life.
Yeah. So inherently you're outgrowing some of the folks that were already there, or maybe their goals and their needs and wants have changed, or a big piece of the reason they were there is because they were so close to you and you could, coddle's the wrong word, but you could be far more open and transparent and have more of these conversations and have this more in-depth relationship. And then as you've grown and you've got 3, 4, 5 times as many employees and you're bouncing around, you're spread thinner, you don't have as much time to spread more thinner, but you don't have as much time to kind of focus.
Because one of the questions, Good Leaders Ask Great Questions is my favorite leadership book. I know there's another one he's written that is more popular, right? There's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And then there's a third one, which is I still need to read. It's on my to-do list. Yep. But there's 3 questions, right? In the Good Leaders Ask Great Questions. And the 3 questions is, can I trust you? Can you help me? And will you do what's best for me? Right? And so the question about, can you help me? That's the part that's changed for some of the people that have been with me the longest. And it's sad for me because I'm helping a lot of people. Right, I'm helping a lot more people. Right, 100 millionaires. That's still the vision. I think we're going to go well past that.
Mm-hmm.
But some people are falling. Yeah, but some people are falling through the cracks. And I won't say it's growing pains in that it's hurting me financially, but it hurts me. The watching people grow, building people up. That's what feeds my soul. It's not about the money. It's watching people's lives get better. And some of these people I can't help anymore. That's the part that's sad.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and you spent so much time and you've had a great relationship and you've cultivated them and you've built something and I'm sure they've helped you too, but at the same point, and then to see it kind of go off, I think it'd be silly to think that wouldn't inherently happen because their goals and their expectations are going to change, right? Like it can't stay on the same platform. But it's still, it's terrible to see. And we deal with it a lot actually as well. I mean, I wouldn't say a lot, but inherently, like the folks that I was really, really close with and we were really detailed, we were walking through everything. It's like, physically don't have that same amount of time to give to that anymore because there's just more to do. There's more people to touch. There's more culture to build within each individual company. There's more,
I have to fit more things within the same amount of time. I still have the same amount of time in a day, but man, like it was funny. I was talking to my wife a few weeks back and she's like, how was your day? I was like, it was a waste. Like I lost a day. And she's like, what that means? Like, well, I had like this hour and a half that I was planning on getting something done. And like, I had like 3 cancellations back to back to back. And it's not like I didn't fill that time with something, but I am so intently productive with my days where if I just have this time that was just lost, I feel like I've lost something and it's crazy probably. But I only lost an hour and a half of my day, but I felt like I lost the whole day.
Yeah. So your expectations of winning the day, winning or losing the day, are that all the time slots are filled, that those meetings are productive, you come away with a good solid plan, or a result that came out of that. So if you miss one of in an hour and a half, hell, that's a sixth of your day, right? So you missed 1/6 was missed. Well, shit, that's like 85%. So you get some percentage right near there. That's lost, right? So 15% is lost. So the best you could do if that's lost is be at 80 something percent, of productivity. So, that makes sense to me. And I tell you what, there are certainly days that I'm like happy that something gets canceled or rescheduled to backfill some other open issues. But I fully understand what you're saying, So it's really, really interesting to hear. Culture wise, do you kind of have an overarching culture that you try to apply or try to build out amongst all of your companies, or do you kind of look at them individually and have individual cultural kind of growth per company?
No, that's a great question, because my 5 core values, I think, are pretty consistent across the board: growth, impact, value, excellence, and service. Those are my 5 core values. And I would say across our 5 companies, across all our companies, that's predominantly true. But our stated goals or our stated values for Max Cash Offers is growth, impact, innovative, teamwork, and service. All right, so it's a little bit different.
Yeah, so innovative,
and you got to be able to recycle.
Yeah,
innovative, right? We're leading edge, which you have to be for wholesaling.
Yeah, absolutely, especially in your market.
Yeah. So, but overall, overarching, they're predominantly the same. But we do have different stated values from Max Cash Offers, and then I'll say the unofficial culture for us is make a lot of freaking money and have fun doing it. That's our unofficial culture.
Does the have fun doing it get washed away to the side fairly often, or does it actually apply? Because I think a lot of people say it, but there's a few. I would say there's a lot less people that actually push it or are intentional about it than there are.
If you're not having fun, what the hell are you doing here? And I'm not saying cold calling's fun. I'm not gonna say cold calling's fun, but you have to love what you do. If you're frumpy, right? Get the hell out of my office. I don't have time for any negativity. We've got to be all positive all the time. And we're not we're not a cult, kind of like a cult, but we're not cultish, right? We're not fake smiles, right?
Fake smiles, yeah.
But if you're negative, get the hell out of my life. I just don't have time for it. I don't know how many brokers that have asked people to leave their brokerage because they weren't living the core values. But I've asked multiple agents that were bringing money to our company to leave because they didn't have our same core values. You and I, we're entrepreneurs. And this is something I've said before to some of my close friends, is that if there's anything in your life, because, going back to all this free time, all this money we're going to make, right? That was the dream.
Yeah.
Right. So one of the reasons why we get into this business is we want to be able to do what we want, when we want to do it, with who we want to do it with, how we want to do it. That's the vision. That's the dream.
It's the overarching
and so if there's
piece,
anything, right? If there's anything that makes you go, ugh, or someone walks in the door and is like, oh, he's here, we're removing that piece. That guy's gone. There's just no need for any drama.
Yeah.
Right?
Check it at the door.
It's hard enough to be successful in this business. We don't need anyone dragging us.
Well, there you go. So, that answers my question 100%, right? So it is a big variable, and it's maybe not as directly that, hey, we are going to push having fun, but we aren't going to allow you to be frumpy and suck the enthusiasm out of everybody else. So inherently that kind of brings it full circle. I'll tell you what, some of the folks, I know that the Manships pretty well out of Indy.
Oh man, those guys are crazy.
Yeah. And I probably don't know them as well as you do, but I've gotten to know them fairly well over the last year. And just kind of in some of the Facebook groups that we're in and just seeing them, you can tell that they are actively bringing fun, a fun culture to their organization, right? From. Yeah.
They have, their work holidays is March Madness.
How awesome is that? I mean,
That's a work holiday.
That's so cool. I mean, like from their like having their cow hat and their crazy belt and their putting green and like all the
Nerf guns.
Shit. Yeah, the Nerf guns, the dollar bill guns and
we're not that. We're not Zappos.
Yeah. So yeah, you're in the middle there. They're on the far end and you're kind of here in the middle. And I think a majority of folks are so concerned about just making it that they can't smile and laugh because they got to be doing so much all the time. So it's interesting to hear. Well, cool. Anything else that you'd like to go over before we kind of conclude this? Because I mean, we hit on a lot. I might actually even have to separate this thing into 2 episodes to keep it on track. A lot of the visionaries are out there going to be like, "Oh my gosh, that's too much stuff in one episode." But anything you want to bring up?
I think the big thing, and this is something that we push a lot in our coaching program, is right now there's not a shortage of how to identify the guy that needs to sell his house. Like a long time ago, I started a debt collection company because companies and services that offer skip tracing, bulk skip tracing, wasn't really an option, right? We got Jason Nicholas offers it. I think Scott and Max in our mastermind, they offer it.
Yep.
So, but a year and a half ago, bulk skip tracing wasn't really an option. Texting wasn't an option. So what did we have to do? We had to go, I became an official debt collector, which I've never collected a debt, but that's what I needed to become so I could do bulk skip tracing, right?
Right.
We looked at some texting companies because we hadn't heard of Lead Sherpa. Lead Sherpa's been around for a while, but it was kind of a secret. It was kind of hush-hush.
Yeah.
And so we had to go get our own texting platform. So like we did all these things because people weren't really talking about it. Mm-hmm. And so now everyone knows how to do bulk skip tracing. Everyone knows how to text. Everyone knows how to do all these different platforms. So identifying the homeowner, getting his information, and touching him is no longer the challenge.
No.
So what's the challenge?
100%. Getting the deal.
So what's the challenge?
Getting the deal.
How to be the guy.
Yeah.
Right? How do I get him to work with me over anybody else? And so that's what we focus a lot of our training on is, if you want to communicate with a homeowner, it's not like, hey, I know the house is worth 300, you want 270, best I can do is 225, right? It's a constant negotiation from the get-go. We don't focus on that. And so what we work a lot on is sales training, sales mastery, and really getting the homeowner to work with you at a price that makes sense. Right? Yep. Getting the homeowner to list the price first, to say the price first, versus you saying the price first. Right? Because negotiation doesn't start until the price is set. So getting the homeowner to say the price first, burning the competition before they even get in without being negative, right? We're not saying like, that guy sucks, don't work with that guy. It's really like, make sure, hey, Robert, it sounds like you got this figured out. You're going to be working with this other, investor. I just want to make sure you're protected. Make sure when you talk to him that he's willing to deposit $10,000 non-refundable to the title company. Because, if he's buying your house for $180,000, but he doesn't have $10,000 to his name, I mean, does that concern you at all? It bothers me, but it's, is that something you thought about? Oh no. What? These guys won't do $10,000 non-refundable, right? So what happens? He's going to feel more comfortable with you. And the other guy is going to be like, hell no, I'm not doing $10,000 non-refundable. What are you asking of me?
Sure. And so just planting seeds, right?
Yeah. The way I like to illustrate it is I'm just putting a couple of landmines, right? Just one under the welcome mat, one over the sofa cushions, maybe one in the dining room. Just a landmine here and there for the next day that comes in. Because I love all my Phoenix people, but I'm winning that room.
That's right. You've spent the money and the time and the hard work to get there. If someone's getting it, it's going to be you. Is the concept, right?
100%.
Yeah, I love it. So yeah, it's just and just hammering that sales, the sales aspect. You're absolutely right. Right. It's never been easier to get in front of who you need to get in front of. What you have to really do, because back 5 years ago, even probably less than that, it was harder and harder and harder or not harder and harder, but it was difficult to get in front of that person. You paper mail and trying to get the right list and get it broken down, and then the cost. But nowadays, you know, the getting in front of the seller is the easier of all of the tasks that have to be done to get a successful deal to the finish line.
Right.
Obviously being a better salesperson. And honestly, we've been digging into this and thinking through this for a while, because on the realtor side, and you well know, you know, there is a drastic difference between the folks that really produce, the top 2%, and all of the other real estate agents, because the barrier to entry is relatively low, right? So there's a drastic difference. Well, that same thing has applied to the wholesaling business. The barrier to entry is super low. You don't even have to have a license, right?
Even lower
in most states. Yeah. So, but what you're starting to see is, I think, is that flight to really high quality. So it's like that a lot of the concept and principles and background and credibility and all the pieces that make a real estate agent great, and follow up and teams and back office and all that stuff, are really starting to apply to the wholesale game, right? So it's everyone has to elevate their game just to meet the status quo, and then you really have to elevate it above that to have high levels of success, to do 200 deals a year or whatever that quantity is, right?
Right. Yeah, we're self-regulating.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just adjusting, and by planting these landmines, as you call them, or by forcing the competition to be better or get out. Yeah, you're pushing the whole industry up, right? You're making everyone better. Okay, well, now it's time to put your money where your mouth is. If they're going to come, then they're going to have to conform to that. Well, if someone doesn't have 10, I mean, I'd rather not have to put $10,000 earners money down on every contract that we write. Don't get me wrong, but
the highest we've ever done is 10. We suggest 10. Typically, it's between 1 and 3,000, right?
Sure.
That's really, if we think this deal is going wobbly, we think he's going to talk to somebody else, that's when we bring out the 10,000. If it's not going to go wobbly, we're not going to just offer 10,000.
Yeah, why do it? And I mean, but it's just it. But we could, at the highest level,
100%.
Wholesalers certainly can. But it does weed out the folks that have no freaking clue. And those folks are also making it so much harder for us and the legitimate folks in the industry, because they come in with some ridiculous offer that was way too much because they have no clue what they're doing. They blow that whole deal. And that kind of leads
to the same thing as a terrible listing agent. All right. The listing agent that takes the property $20,000 overpriced.
Right.
It's the same guy.
It's exactly it. And you accept that the barrier to entries are even lower, so you have more of them. But that does bring the other piece of the sales tactics, right? So you're doing not what you're doing. What you just discussed was the front end. Obviously, the back end is the next big piece, where you start talking about follow up and, you know, kind of the additional pieces, assuming that sale isn't concluded on that first meeting, right? So are you, what are you doing on that front that is, you know, are you doing anything in particular or anything that is of higher level than kind of just the status quo on your follow-up front?
No, our follow-up game is one thing that needs to be improved on. You know, we're not great at it. A lot of it is going to be like, are you going to sell or not? You know? And really that's part of the negotiations. Like, it just sounds like you've got this figured out. We're looking to buy a house between now, like 1 or 2 more houses between now and end of the month. It sounds like this is not the house. And then we move on. Not to say that we won't touch the guy again, but I won't say our follow game is impressive.
Okay. Well, no, that's interesting to hear. I mean, honestly, like, what I think is the next big wave, or not even wave, because it's something that everybody should do. It's not bubble-esque or anything, but I think that's something we've been really focusing on the last year. I know there's a handful of folks that do it really, really well, but I think we're probably in that top tier of really working that out, right? Where it's simple to do drip campaigns and automation and everything, but really, really strategizing the follow-up and how it falls through and you know, whether it be compliance, quote unquote, compliance calls from someone in the office calling, making sure that the acquisition person, you know, check these 5 boxes, and then, you know, trying to, you know, mine for more information and so on and so forth, like really working out some strategic planning on that. So I'm always interested to hear if anyone's doing anything, because I think that's kind of that next big level. And here's the other thing. I think that the wholesale side maybe even does it better than most real estate agents. I think most real estate agents are
there's no question.
There's a
all
lot
the
of value
marketing
added
stuff.
there.
It's really innovative on wholesale side. When I first met, what is Don Ross? When I first met Don Ross, and he gave me a demo of beast mode.
Yeah.
And we're past that point now. But when I first saw that demo, I was like, what do you guys do? You guys are doing what in follow-up, in marketing, and this and that? It was crazy to me.
Yeah.
It's a whole other world.
And it really is. And like, if you could go back 2 years and what wholesalers were doing and plug that into most real estate agents companies and have tremendous success. And then even fast forward that now to where we're at now, and it would be unbelievable. But I know some really successful real estate agents that do exceptionally well, that have almost no follow-up, which is crazy to me. Because that just, I can't imagine the amount of meat left on the bone. I can't imagine. I mean, just because, like you mentioned, if someone that takes a listing and promises a sales price or quotes a sales price 20,000 over ask, like those people aren't being touched until it's expired, right? Like, so, and I honestly, I don't know all the ethics and all the rules around when you can or can't or all of that, but I guarantee there's ways to do it legally or do it in the correct manner and still have that right follow up and still have that right success and get those deals before they ever get to expired or withdrawn,
Yep.
Well, terrific. This was unbelievable. Actually, I mean, just so many really, really good conversations here. So many just really impactful pieces. I'm probably going to actually just do a kind of revisit of all these different points to kind of close this out. But anything else that you want to mention before we conclude here?
No, that was it. I really enjoyed this time together.
Absolutely. No, this was awesome. Well, thank you so much, Steve. I greatly appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time. I mean, heck, I think we're coming up on 2 hours here, and I know you've got something, and I do too. So I think we need to talk more often, because that was too easy for 2 hours to go by. Well, thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it. Thanks for being on Level Up and Real Estate Investing Podcast. All the folks out there listening, make sure you follow Steve and Real Estate Disruptors. I mean, he's got some amazing stuff going on. You've got your coaching platform, your new mastermind, as well as just an unbelievable podcast and Facebook Live. I guess it's Facebook Live podcast, but it's a really, really cool concept.
Yeah.
So, wish you the best, and thanks again for being on.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm honored.
Absolutely, my man. Well, we'll talk to you soon, and until then, man, have further success.
Thank you.
All right, see you, brother.
Yeah.
Hey guys, as always, this episode of the podcast is sponsored by Bottleneck Real Estate Virtual Assistants. These guys are fantastic. We've been using them for years in our business. They've really helped us scale. Hopefully you guys like them as much as we do. If you want to get in touch, it's bottleneckrealestate.com, bottleneckrealestate.com, and I think you will be very happy with them. If you got some good quality content out of that, if you think it would help anybody, please go to iTunes or SoundCloud or whoever you're listening to this on and subscribe to the podcast. Also, please give us a 5-star rating. It really helps get us out there. If you do subscribe and give us a 5-star rating, take a screenshot of it, email it over to info@robertheyder.com, Robert, Heyder.com, and register for you guys to win a free one-on-one coaching session with myself or one of our guests. They were nice enough to give up some of their time, so thank you for that. Also, please follow us on social media, Robert_Heyder at Instagram, Robert_Heyder at Instagram. We'll drop some really quality content there. Also, I almost forgot, if you guys want a free commercial real estate guide and commercial real estate analysis tool, just go to the website, robertheyder.com, fill out that brief little form, and we'll email that over to you. It's a really, really good tool just to be able to analyze deals quickly, understand kind of what's going on, see if it's actually a deal. All right, guys, thanks. Until the next one.